my girls with me. I got Mrs. Brandy Fairfax in the house with me, and I got Cleveland Kate with me as well. What's up, ladies? How y'all doing?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right. Was
Right,
Cleveland
with
Kate there for a second?
I'm here. I'm here. You can't see me?
Yeah, I can't see your lovely face,
Oh, well, I'm here.
your lovely suntan face,
I
because
was
you was in
I was in
Florida, right?
Florida. I just freckle, girl. I don't tan. My freckles get darker.
Okay. How was your trip?
It was good. I caught a fish.
Oh, you
We
did?
won football games.
A marlin?
No, it was that big.
A
It was that
sardine?
football.
A sardine, girl? Oh
No,
God.
little baby yellowfin snapper. They're delicious. They are
And
delicious when they are all grown up, and we just cook
I
them simple, right? I like a whole fish. Like I don't
okay.
fillet it, all that. You scale it, and then you just cut like four slices into one side, and you put a little lemon wedge in each slice. Flip it over, do the same thing on that side, throw it on the grill, good to go.
Okay, good. Sounds like you had a good time. Brandy, how was your weekend?
It was pretty good. I didn't do too much, just watch some sports. That was about it.
Yeah, that seems like what we do with our lives is just watch a whole bunch of sports, but that's okay because that's something to do and that's fun. That's my
I'm telling
favorite
you, I missed
pastime.
it. We watched football from the pool and saw the
Okay.
not this weekend, the weekend before, and there was
Uh-huh.
a whole hot mess going on with the BCS and Ohio State getting into the top four, and I was aggravated. I'm sure that last week.
You were aggravated?
Yes, I was aggravated that the voters in the BCS were too chicken to put Ohio State third and just let them play Michigan again now. Instead of putting them fourth, they're hoping Georgia take Ohio State out. Sorry, because the last thing they want is an all Big Ten championship. But watch Ohio State throw a wrench in those plans, take it to Georgia, and then Michigan win, and then they have to see us play in the championship.
That would be lovely.
I was just glad that after Nick Saban did all that whining about my quarterback was hurt and we had other injuries. Wow. You should let us in the top four anyway. Go away, Nick Saban. Everybody got injuries every year. You don't get to cry your way into the top four. That's not
Yeah,
how
we lost a
that's
defensive
the
end to
I'm
them.
sorry you ain't get your fat bonus check this year, but that's no Alabama to get into the top four. Y'all
He
had
makes
two
like
losses.
he makes $9 million. He's fine without a bonus check. We lost the defensive end to them. He was down between Ohio State and Alabama, and he chose Alabama. I hope Alabama is on the on the precipice, and Wayne is a waning program. Since they weren't able to make the BCS, this go around, maybe we could be on the tipping point with them, and they not start to be a winning program. Possibly that
It'd
is one of the
be
hopes.
interesting to see number one, how many of their commitments actually show up and don't change their mind before then, and number two, how many players start heading to the portal, because that portal was aggravating me earlier in the season, and now I kind of think it's a very interesting barometer of how a program is going. The number of guys that want to leave at the end of the year and enter the portal to go somewhere else, I think
Hmm.
says a lot more about the school they were playing at than their talent level and that they want to start somewhere else. I think the program is why they're leaving.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that Ohio State could use is some defensive ends. So it's important that we don't lose commits and that we bring in some stronger defensive ends because you saw that severely in the Michigan game. So hopefully we might be able to flip somebody else. So we'll see what happens. But let's talk about some Cleveland Browns action. So our 2-game winning streak has snapped. Some people was drinking some 6-0 Kool-Aid and thought that the Browns could possibly win out. We knew it was something that would possibly be a miracle if that was something that actually happened. I wasn't thinking along the lines of that, but I'm like, why not? What could be better than possibly winning out? And unfortunately, Cleveland wasn't able to get their 5th win against Joey B, and they went down to Cincinnati, and it was a snoozer. But they had opportunity and chances and just couldn't convert. And you had a much better game from Deshaun Watson this time around. It was just a bunch of almost kind of the same. Kind of the same old, except for you had decent quarterback play this time around. But let's get into your takes, Brandy. What are your thoughts about the Cleveland Browns loss yesterday to Cincinnati overall?
Yeah, so going into the game, the first time we played them, they didn't have Jamar Chase, so I knew that was going to be, one of the first struggles. But also I knew Joe Burrow was going to be looking for his first win against the Browns. He hasn't been able to beat the Browns yet, but overall, I thought that the Browns should have played better. I thought that, this was a game that they could have won, especially, T. Higgins had left the game as well as Tyler Boyd. So, their only main target was Jamar Chase. They were also missing Hayden Hurst, their tight end. So, I was expecting, more double coverages on Jamar Chase with all of them out as well. And, we didn't really see much of that.
Where was Emerson? Why they have Denzel Ward getting beat on Jamar Chase all day yesterday? That rookie Emerson has impressed me the last couple of weeks. And I thought to myself, you know what? Let's put the rook on Jamar. Let's see how they do. Where was that? I was unhappy with the coverage on him because to Brandy's point, bro didn't have nobody else to throw to. You needed to double up on Jamar Chase, right? And then really at the end of the day, the penalties did us more damage than anything else. When you force them to punt, when your defense does the work to force them to punt, and then you get a roughing the kicker penalty, and then you get two more penalties that give them more first downs that let them score when they should have been punting away. That for me was a turning point in the game. And the penalties yesterday were worse and more costly than I've seen them all season. I saw a little bit of improvement with Deshaun. His first week in Houston, I get it. He was rusty. Been 700 days since he's played football. Back in Houston, that had to be emotional, not knowing what to expect. I learned two things. Number one, clearly our defensive practice squad was not put enough pressure on him because he saw a real defense and didn't know what to do. Number two, I have three things. Number two, he quit throwing at people's feet. And I don't think he was throwing at their feet. I think he was just throwing short. But those balls at people's feet in Houston, at least yesterday, the balls were up over their head and they were back in the range where they should have been. But number three, we're on like our fifth or sixth center, which is causing now at this point in the season real problems with that offensive line. I was glad they kept trying to run Nick Chubb. It was not successful. And I will credit Cincinnati's defense with conditioning because usually third, fourth quarter is when they wear down and Chubb's able to break through. And we did keep going at them and they kept stopping him. So I got to give them credit for being in good enough condition that they were able to contain him for that whole game. Because it's not like we gave up on the run, but I really do think the penalties hurt us more than anything else. The only colorful little tidbit I will add, and I don't want to be that person, but I'm going to be that person, is who was Baker Mayfield out in LA leading a last-minute fourth-quarter drive to win a game? He couldn't do that in all his years here. That's all we kept asking him was for that one signature win where he leads a drive at the end of a game to win, and then he does it in LA. I was like, dude, where was that for the last 4 years? I don't know. I'm glad for him. He's getting 3 paychecks now. I don't know. You know, Rachel, how they do paychecks in the NFL? Like
like the NBA. I don't know if it's like that, but he still might be. I don't know. That's a good question for DJ Chris Styles. But
does the NFL do payroll for all the players and then the teams pay into that? Like I've always been curious about that. I got to find out how that works because that makes no sense to me. Is first of all, there's probably some teams where those payroll checks might bounce if you know what I'm saying. So you got to make sure those checks clear. So it wouldn't surprise me if they ran those centrally through the NFL because you've also got tax implications. If you play a game in Minnesota, you owe the state of Minnesota tax for a portion of your check. That's why I learned a couple of years ago. That's why sometimes when guys are injured, they don't travel with the team because even if you travel with the team, you've got to file a state income tax return in that state because you were there with the team. So that's why on basketball, football, baseball, a lot of those teams, when the guys are hurt, they don't travel. They'll be on the sidelines in street clothes here, but they won't travel. So there's got to be all kinds of rules. Do you trust all 32 teams to keep track of that, or do you maintain that centrally at the NFL level? If anybody knows, give us a call.
Yeah, I think that's got to be something that's centralized, and the NFL has and all the leagues, have that offices because of as much as the players travel and stuff like that, they have to have offices that handle all that for them. Because think about when they have to go to Canada as well, and
Yep.
in the NBA and Major League Baseball, they don't have that in the NFL just yet. Maybe eventually one day, but I'm thinking that obviously
But
there's a whole department dedicated to all of that.
London and Germany, what do you do that? Are you exempt from your
Yeah.
U.S. tax on that portion of your paycheck? Oh,
Yeah,
see,
that's true. Don't
folks,
forget Mexico City.
yeah, I got to do some research and see if I can find out because now I'm super curious. I hadn't even thought about out of the country stuff till you mentioned Canada.
Yeah, but yeah, they just played in Mexico City this year as well. So you got to add that too. How many pesos are you getting for that game?
You
Um,
know, for the young ones listening to the show, maybe you ought to go to school and major in accounting for athletes and interstate tax laws and intercountry tax laws and just have an athlete. Maybe the athletes just hire their own tax people who do all that. Maybe the NFL doesn't do it at all. Who knows? It's an interesting.
Yeah, but I don't see why the NFL wouldn't do that and leave people to their own devices to do that. As much as we can't stand the leadership in these leagues, they're well-oiled machines. So,
Yeah.
I can only imagine the people that get paid to do all that stuff, and that's why they get paid the big bucks. But, my observations from, this game was more kind of the same defensively. Like you said, we only had Jamar Chase really that Joe Burrow had to do that, and that one touchdown pass was just, I mean, just amazing when he split the defenders. I'm like, you had to give props to Joe Burrow, but you have two defenders there. Why isn't somebody getting a hand on that ball? And why isn't somebody intercepting that ball? How does something like that possibly happen? So, this team is, they could win by a little, they can win by a lot, but it's just always the little things. And unfortunately, they played undisciplined football, like Kate was mentioning, that punt where we went after the kicker and we, obviously it was a mistake, but that is something that changes a game. Your defense, because Cincinnati wasn't doing anything. And ladies, to be honest with you, I fell asleep during the game by accident. My dad told me I was snoring. So, I
There
believe
was
I
a
fell asleep.
stretch of three and
Yeah, the
outs
second
where what
quarter,
no
I think, when nothing
was
was going on. There was
yeah,
nothing going on. And I think I fell asleep for a hot second. I didn't miss a score.
yeah,
I didn't miss the scoring or anything like that. But, it was a very boring game. And Cincinnati had been playing very well. They just came off of beating, Kansas City. I think they beat Kansas City 3 times straight. So they just came off beating a team that's always in it for Super Bowl talks is the Kansas City Chiefs. So that's a huge win. So, there was a lot of pressure. I don't feel like there was any pressure on the Cleveland Browns. I felt like all the pressure was on the Cincinnati Bengals and Joey Burrow to finally, beat the Cleveland Browns. And especially they're playing well. You expect, the continued succession. And, the Cleveland Browns, they were holding that ball, they were holding the Cincinnati Bengals in check offensively. And they weren't really doing anything. They didn't really get going until the second half of the game. They had that touchdown. But after that, there really wasn't anything going on. So it's just, those simple things with the defense, a man being there, getting your hands up, things of that nature, and not committing penalties. There was a ton of penalties yesterday, and you're
yeah,
penalized for over 100 yards. That's a score right there for you.
yeah.
And
Right that the pressure was all on Cincinnati. With them being tied with Baltimore in our division, they're in
yeah,
a battle for this division. Lamar Jackson's new.
right.
You got all that going on. I have to say, with Pittsburgh beating Baltimore, I almost don't mind the fact that we lost to Cincinnati because we're not going anywhere. They are a better team than we are. There is no the craziness of, well, if we go 6-0, we can make the play. Why? This is not a good team. I don't even want to deal with them in the playoffs. I'd rather see Cincinnati win this division than the Ravens, but the Ravens' schedule is like, us, Pittsburgh twice, Atlanta, and Detroit. Detroit's going to give them a handful of a game. They'll walk right over Atlanta. I don't know what's going to happen when they play us. So I would much rather see Cincinnati win our division than Baltimore. And so they had a lot more on the line, frankly, than we did. I think the next game coming up will be interesting for the Browns because Deshaun will be here. So he's played on the road in Houston. He now played on the road in Cincinnati. We'll see if his reception is better here. He got booed in Cincinnati. I get that. I I would hope he doesn't get booed here. The reality is he's our quarterback now. It is what it is. It's too late to be unhappy about the situation. I'm hoping they don't boo him here, unless he plays bad. If he plays bad, have at it. I have no problem booing when people are playing bad. So we'll see if he's better this week. I thought he was better than he was the week before, which isn't saying much. I'm not sure what to say. I think at some point we need to talk about this defense. And while they've been better the last couple of weeks, I still don't know that I want Joe Woods back as my defensive coordinator. I don't care if we go, win out the rest of the season. I still don't know that means he's a good defensive coordinator. So that's a topic for, I think, at the end of the season on what happens with him.
Yeah, but Brandy, did you think that there was any improvement in the defense yesterday? Even though, we got penalized. We got penalized offensively and defensively, though. But did you notice any improvement in the defense yesterday that might have saved Joe Woods' job another week?
Nothing too special. I think they did play a decent game. They haven't had those big miscommunications the past weeks like that we were seeing earlier in the season. So that's something that's definitely improved. Their tackling has improved as well. But I think, as far as saving his job, I don't think that does that.
Okay. All right. We're going to take a break really quickly. You're listening to Her in the Huddle on WOVU 95.9 FM. We'll be right back.
Hi, this is Nicole Huffman of Inspired by Love, introducing the Organize My Life community group. Join us here on WOVU 95.9 FM and online for monthly organization tips to help you become more productive and less stressful. Great resources and tips that's no cost to you. Celebrate good times. Come on, it's time to celebrate. We've been talking all month about organizing our to-do list. A celebration should always follow the hard work that you are doing. Take a moment to relax. Treat yourself to your favorite restaurant. Order the book. Enjoy the cupcake. However you celebrate, just make sure you pop your collar and say, job well done. This is just the beginning to a better you. Keep listening to WOVU 95.9 FM for more tips to build your Organize My Life toolbox. I am Nicole Huffman with Inspired by Love, and we are on this journey together. Let's get organized.
What's going on, y'all? It's your girl DJ Chevy Red with the Mix Like My Beats radio show. Make sure you guys tune in every Friday from 5 to 6 p.m. for all the hottest hip-hop, Latin, and of course, throwbacks. Make sure you guys go and download our mobile app, WOVU 95.9 FM on all platforms. Again, each and every Friday, 5 to 6 p.m. right here on WOVU 95.9 FM with your girl DJ Chevy Red. Jesus loves you, Chevy loves you. I'm out, y'all.
Welcome back to Her in the Huddle with Rachel Hill, the First Lady of Sports.
All right. Welcome back to Her in the Huddle, WOVU 95.9 FM. This is your girl, Rachel Hill, the First Lady of Sports, and I am here with Miss Brandy Fairfax, and we are here with Cleveland Kate. Cleveland Kate is back after going on vacation down in Florida and catching some fish. She is back up here with us. And ladies, so one of the things that we want to talk about is we talked about this a little bit, but I want to go a little bit deeper into Deshaun Watson. How much percent of improvement would you say he had from this week to last week?
I'm gonna go 50%.
What percentage did you think he was at last week as far as his play?
Oh, I mean, so how do you want to? I think he improved a lot over last week, but I don't think he's back at where he was in 2020 before before that season ended and then he stopped playing. So I think he's probably, I don't know, I'm gonna say,
because I can give him easily a 0. Last week for me it was a 0.
I mean, for me this week was it was an accuracy issue. He seemed to get the deep throws. He had a lot more zip on the ball than he did his first week. I thought he was getting it downfield, which is what he's good at. I don't know if the timing of the patterns was off, if our receivers aren't used to having someone who can throw a deep ball, or if it's just an accuracy working, kind of a thing. But I thought he was, 50% better than he was the first week. So maybe he was at a 0 the first week and I got him at like 50 this week. He's still got a ways to go to get back to 2020 form. But I mean, I think he can get there by the end of the year. I'm just not sure then what happens in the offseason. Maybe he gets back into 2020 form early next year. Maybe the preseason will help him with that, but he definitely needs these weeks to get that rust taken off and get back into a feel for the game.
I agree as well with the 0% last week to now being at 50%. You know, we've seen flashes in the games of what he looked like in 2020. So, you know, I think just, you know, taking time to, you know, more practicing with the team, having next year, you know, a full training camp, full practicing to be able to mesh with the team, I think is really going to be able to help him. But, you know, we have seen some little bit of accuracy off of throws, but also the receivers have dropped balls as well. So I think that does play into effect. But I think next year we're definitely going to see, you know, the Deshaun Watson that we saw in 2020.
Yeah, he was the beneficiary of a lot of drop balls. Donovan People-Jones. Well, yesterday Deshaun Watson went 26 for 43 with 1 touchdown and 1 pick. So, you know, he's only had 1 touchdown so far. So that is a big issue as well about this offense not being able to score. What we went 7 quarters without an offensive score almost. So one of the things is Donovan People-Jones, he had an excellent day yesterday. He had 8 catches for 114 yards. One of the things is, you know, I think he's building a formidable chemistry with Deshaun Watson, but that was a touchdown yesterday that he dropped. He knew he dropped. He knew that was a touchdown. He knew he could have caught it because that's almost the same catch that he made with Baker Mayfield the season before against Cincinnati. That bucket catch, that was almost the same catch, except for this time it bounced off his chest, but it was right there for you, you know, to be able to grab, and he just didn't get it. And, you know, I don't know how much that touchdown might have changed the game. You know, it might have had, if they got that touchdown, the defense might have came out and played more inspired. I don't know. But that defense could have, that if he caught that and scored that touchdown, that might have changed the game too yesterday.
So he had 8 catches, but how many targets did he have? Do you know?
Huh? I don't have the targets. Let me look that up.
Because that was what was frustrating me, is it seemed that DPJ was the only one Deshaun was going, like, where is Amari Cooper? Where's
targets?
They had a couple, but it just felt like he was zeroed in on DPJ, which is fine if he's catching everything, but the defense seemed to figure that out as well. And I wanted to talk to you about, before I forget, the call early in the game on, what was it, 4th and 1, where they put Jacoby in, and you know it's Jacoby Brissett, and Jacoby Brissett's 96% quarterback sneaks on successful on 4th down. That's like one of the few stats the Browns lead the league in, is 4th down conversions, and they go with the pass. And I get it, and I thought it was a gutsy call, and I didn't disagree with it, because yes, it would have been nice to take the points, but everyone and their brother thought they were going to run. If he'd have connected with that pass instead of overthrowing it like he did, and I had a couple people criticize me on Twitter, and their problem with the call was, you're bringing Jacoby in cold off the bench and asking him to throw. Is that why that play didn't work? Do you have thoughts on that play and if they should have tried it? And what's your feedback on it?
Brandy, you go first.
So for me, I think, you know, it's not necessarily the play of that was a problem for me. I think, you know, that they maybe should have ran or a sneak with Deshaun Watson just because of the rhythm that they were having with the plays before that. But I think, you know, that play isn't a bad idea. You know, you look at the New Orleans Saints, they do that all the time with Taysom Hill and Andy Dalton or Jameis Winston. And 9 times out of 10, if Taysom is doing it, the play does work. So I think, you know, the Browns doing that isn't a bad move, but if you're going to make a call like that, you have to make sure that it works.
Well, and for me, one of the things about it is it didn't work this time, but maybe the next time what it does is it makes the defense think twice when you put Brissett in. It's like, wait, we can't just assume he's going to quarterback sneak. And so maybe they ease up off the line a little bit, and that allows the sneak to actually work instead of him throwing it again. You know what I mean? Like, some of these, I think, are mental chess games that the coaches play. It's a way to put some spin on it of, well, it didn't work, but it might be in a defense's head the next time we're in a 4th and 1 situation and we want to actually do a sneak.
I think that they were driving down the field really well, kind of getting whatever they wanted on that opening possession. So I thought that, hey, maybe we might go back to scoring on our first possession because that's something that has not happened the past two games, I don't think. So I thought, hey, maybe we're going to go back to who we used to be and we're going to be able to execute. But this team is a team that doesn't execute, and it's the little things with this team. I think, if we're going to all be about analytics, you follow the analytics and you go for the high percentage, you go for the quarterback sneak, you allow somebody to run the ball instead of going for it on 4th and 1. Not only did you have Jacoby be cold, but Jacoby isn't known for being the most accurate passer in the league as well. He's been serviceable, and he's did a nice job, but this guy isn't, Joey Burrow where he can thread the needle like that. I mean, he did on that pass against, with David Njoku. So, he was able to thread the needle. But, this isn't somebody who is hitting on all cylinders all the time. So a deep pass like that, an overthrow like that, if Kevin Fancy, if they make it, he's a genius. And it works and he's great, but they didn't.
And that kind of stuff frustrates me. But to your point on the analytics, so where I get stuck, because I do numbers for a living, is people talk about, in this situation, you should do this, but they don't factor in your team's ability to actually execute the play that was called. It wasn't the call of that play that was the problem. It was that we did not execute the play. And so that's where I think the analytics may say, here is a very good opportunity for you to put Brissett out there. The defense will think you're going to quarterback sneak. You can take advantage of that and throw the ball. How often is his throwing the ball successful? That's got to weigh into it. And I don't think it did. I don't think it did at all. So I criticize a lot of Stefanski's play calls, and I really need to look at some of these. If I could get my hands on the All-22 film, I think a lot of these are not bad play calling. It's a bad execution. And at this point in the year, we shouldn't still be having execution issues on plays.
Yeah, that's what it boiled down to, and that's what I meant. I think you described it, completely well. It's about, the ability to execute, in the Cleveland Browns. They're just not that team just yet. Maybe in a couple years from now with Deshaun Watson, and they're still trying to figure that.
Next year.
What?
Next year.
Next year? Okay. All right.
This year is kind of like, for me, is kind of like a mini preseason. We're just trying to get 6 weeks of him practicing. Easing himself back into, you should be able to stay completely healthy. Then you do a normal off season with your normal off season routine. Then you've got spring training, OTAs and all of that stuff to be ready to go. On the bright side, for training camp next year, we won't be having a quarterback controversy. We will know who the starter is. I miss that. I like knowing who my starter is going into training camp. It'll give us a very good look at who they need to draft. So I'd almost prefer they lose out so I get a better draft position, because there are glaring weakness on this team, not just on center, but even on the defensive line. We've got some issues. So they should have a really clear picture of what we need to get in the draft and what we need to look at in the offseason. One thing that I was sad about this week, so I think the play call going for it on 4th-and-1 was also a little bit of, we beat Cincinnati's butt bad on Halloween, and Stefanski wanted to start the game, first drive, touchdown, set the tone now that we don't care if you just beat Kansas City. We're still in your head. We're going to get you.
Because it was bold. Bold.
It's bold. You got to be bold. Set the tone early. It didn't work. But I also didn't see Myles Garrett get very close to Joe Burrow at all. And in every other game that we've played with Joe Burrow, Myles Garrett has been up in his face constantly. I don't know if he took his offensive line out to dinner, if he promised them I don't know what he did to have them protect him the way they protected him, or even for him to trust them to protect him the way he did. Clowney did more damage this week, from what I saw, than Garrett did.
Yeah.
With that ball that led to the interception, and just in pressures, Clowney was a bigger factor than Garrett, and that surprised me. I thought Garrett would have been a much bigger presence. Maybe they had to throw a couple guys on him, which is why Clowney ended up free. I don't know, but we'll see. Well, at least if nothing else, that Deshaun, I think, better be leaps and bounds ahead for next season. Better be leaps and bounds ahead for next year.
I think, the Cincinnati Bengals said they're not going to let two things happen. They're not going to let Deshaun Watson beat them, and they're not going to let Myles Garrett beat them. And they came up with game plans specifically for that. And I think, the Amari Cooper situation, he wasn't really targeted that much, but Amari Cooper has to make plays and has to make catches too, because he had a couple drops as well. So when your number is up, you got to execute.
Girl, if they watched the Houston film, they weren't concerned at all about Deshaun Watson. They were concerned about Nick Chubb and Myles Garrett.
Yeah.
They could stop Nick Chubb, then they were going to force Deshaun Watson to beat them. And after the way he played in Houston, that would have been my strategy. You're still rusty. Go ahead, try to beat me. We're going to take your run game away. Mm-hmm. And they did.
Yep. So Cincinnati had an excellent game plan, for this game as well. And they were not trying to go 0-5. Joe Burrow's not trying to go 0-5 against the, Cleveland Browns. So, hats off to Cincinnati for having a game plan to stop the Cleveland Browns as well. But, the Cleveland Browns also shot themselves in the foot too with the penalties. So they also helped with that as well. So we're going to go ahead and take another break. You're listening to Her in the Huddle on WOVU 95.9 FM. And we will be right back.
The holiday season is here. It's the time of year when we connect with our family and friends. But for many, it's easy to feel isolated. Stay connected to your loved ones by calling 216-307-6990. A digital navigator is standing by to help you find affordable internet plans and devices, as well as free training and support. Reconnect today with the help of the digital navigators. Call 216-307-6990. This message is brought to you by the Digital Navigators and WOVU 95.9 FM. Our Voices United, Burton Bell Carr Community Radio. The holiday season is here, the time of year when we reconnect with our family, friends, and loved ones. It can also be an expensive time. Everything costs more now, and holiday trips and gifts can add up quickly. Even trying to stay connected virtually is just another costly bill each month. But it doesn't have to be that way anymore. Your digital navigator can help you find affordable internet plans and devices, as well as free training and support. Call the digital navigators at 216-307-6990 and find the right plan for your budget. Get connected to the internet and stay connected to your loved ones this holiday season through the digital navigators. This message is brought to you by the digital navigators and WOVU 95.9 FM. Our Voices United, Burton Bell Carr Community Radio.
Welcome back to Her in the Huddle with Rachel Hill, the First Lady of Sports.
All right, welcome back to Her in the Huddle, WOVU and 95.9 FM. Remember, you can always listen to us on your regular radio dial at 95.9 FM. You can listen to us online by downloading that WOVU app, and you can listen to us online as well at WOVU.org, and you can always call the studio at 216-271-0959. And I'm here with Brandy Fairfax and Cleveland Kate, and we are talking a little Cleveland Browns. So today was not a victory Monday, something that we have been accustomed to the past two Mondays. So it was a losing Monday, but that's okay too. And you ladies,
that you told them how they can listen to the show and contact us if they want to call and stuff. If they're watching on StreamYard, they can add comments in the comment section, like George, friend of show, says Watson versus Houston was a 0, and then versus Cincinnati, there was a 50% improvement. So he agrees with me and Brandy. He said it's a process that will take time and patience. Cleveland fan and patience are a thin line between love and hate. He's right. I mean, at what point does Deshaun have to put up before the fans lose patience with him? Do you think he's got to show them this year, or are we going to be patient till next year?
I think we're going to be patient until next year. This year is a lost season, so it's over with. Now it's just about getting him, acclimated to, Cleveland Browns and acclimated to his receivers and things like that, because the year's already lost. So
I agree. Because I think that loss to Cincinnati kind of, you're right. For those people who thought we could go on a run and end up doing something,
6-0, baby.
that balloon has been inflated, and so maybe now they'll say, you know what, we are rebuilding. Let's just have patience and give it time. Who knows? Cleveland fans are weird.
I agree with the 50% too.
Again.
I didn't give a percentage, but I guess I agree with you guys. 50%. It was a marked, improvement. We didn't win the game, but it was a drastic improvement. It wasn't 2020 Deshaun Watson, but it was a marked improvement. From what happened last week. So defense. Any notes about defense?
Right now, I think, I think the rest of the season kind of just gives a good look of, what next year can be. The rest of this year, just keep forming connections to get the team to connect and, finish out those inconsistencies that they've been having. But I think, it also gives them, especially the team, a look at next year. There's a lot of high salary contracts this year that they're going to have to look at. Jadeveon Clowney being one of them. Jack Cox.
He ain't coming back.
He's one of them. They try to get rid of him this trade deadline. So we'll see Grady Williams, Anthony Walker as well. He's on that injury. So Taki as well. So there's a lot of contracts they're going to have to look at this offseason to see if they're going to want them to come back or move on from certain players.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it depends on who our coordinator is, right? If we keep Joe Woods or if we get a new one's going to be more apt to making wholesale changes in personnel and everything else. So what you could see for the last few weeks of the season is a huge improvement of the defense because guys are fighting for their jobs, because they want a contract extension, because they want to, if they buy into the Deshaun Watson hype and if they believe and see that we're going to go somewhere next year, they want to stay here, you could see an elevation of play that has nothing to do with what you get all year, but they're playing for contracts.
Yeah, and like you said, Kay, that's an excellent point about who we'll have as a defensive coordinator next year. That'll determine a lot of things. So it'll definitely be interesting. As far as how this defense goes. Who they want to re-sign and who do they want to go after on the free agency market. Do they want to make a big splash and stuff like that? Because I believe they have plenty of cap room to do so. So and then it depends on what scheme that they want to run and all that other stuff. So there's a lot to, think about, a lot to be happy about. Martin Emerson, who he has emerged. He had a great game against Cincinnati a couple weeks ago. I think that they kind of neutralized him a little bit yesterday. So they might have game planned for him as well because he performed so well in Cincinnati.
Yeah.
So,
and in that Tampa Bay game where he was all over Mike Evans, I mean,
yeah.
I really, really like him. I was on a Tampa radio show that week and they were asking me about him specifically. And I'm like, listen, he's going to get tested this week. And it looked really good. So I was excited about that. I meant to ask you girls, and you brought up defense, which is what made it pop into my head. And I know this is one of, your random stupid questions from Kate. I noticed when they were with one of the penalties that we had, delay of game offense, they always call that penalty delay of game offense. Can you have delay a game on the defense? Like, do they have to say offense? I didn't think the defense could delay the game. I thought the offense could just snap whenever they wanted to snap. And if there weren't enough defenders on the field, too bad for them. Can you have a delay a game defense?
Was that called yesterday?
No, I
was about to say.
And they say offense, like there's an option. Like I thought, of course it's the offense, but I've just never, it made me stop and think about, I've never heard anyone just say delay a game. They say delay a game offense, like there was some other option and they had to specify who did it.
Yeah.
About that. That's funny. They must just be so used to saying whether it's the offense or defense.
Yeah, and I think that's the only option though too, because I'm trying to think about in basketball as well. But usually offense controls the game, so I guess it's always going to be on offense because you notice
Okay.
that on in the NBA though too as well. Like if you touch that ball going out of bounds, like if you touch that ball after you score, you're not supposed to touch it. They'll call it delay of the game against you, but technically you're on defense. But that's a call that they make in NBA as well. But typically yeah, that's a little different though, now that you mention it, because it's against the team that's supposed to be playing defense. So,
Yeah.
but usually, and then the delay a game in Major League Baseball, they're instituting that pitch clock and all that other stuff. So that's against,
Yeah.
technically like the defense as well against the pitcher. So I guess it's the only one that applies is against the offense. So in
Yeah.
football,
I'm like,
so.
why does he say offense? I know it's the offense. And then I'm like, wait, and against someone else? I don't think it can. And I couldn't think of a situation in football where it could be anyone other than the offense.
Right, because if it's on the defense, usually you call a timeout to avoid that. So, especially when you have
If,
too many men
if
on the
the defense
field.
ready, the offense sees it, snaps the ball, and they go on with their day trying to catch you not ready. So, see, what's going to happen now is everyone listening is going to notice every time someone says delay of game offense, they're going to go, oh, Kate said that. They do say,
What's up, Mike? He said the Queens of Ohio. We like that.
hey, hey,
We
Mikey.
like we like that. A little bit more NFL, a little bit more Browns. So I'm like, we got to get to the Cavs. They play tonight. But what about Denzel Ward? What do we think about his play? Should he? Did you think he played okay? He should have just been given some safety help as well.
He needed something. He needed some help. Jamar Chase should not have had over 100 yards on his first game back. How you don't, and now I'm back to Joe Woods. How you don't game plan to take Jamar Chase away from him? We saw Joe Burrow played without him. You get him back, you get Reader back, you get all these other guys back. And then the next thing you know, Tyler Boyd's out, T. Higgins is out, all these people are out. And you're like, as a defensive coordinator, how are you not throwing two people on Jamar Chase? Telling them to talk to each other, getting him some safety help, doing something. I was appalled.
Yeah, I definitely think he needed some help across the top. But on that touchdown, I don't think either one of them saw the ball.
No, they didn't. But you can let him have a couple plays, but that don't get him 100, however many yards he had. I mean, he had too good a day for being the only target out there.
And they got beat by another deep ball again.
Yeah. Maybe we should take Anthony Schwartz, who can't catch a ball, and just put him on defense, maybe make him a corner, because he's fast enough to stay with those guys. Because I question the speed of my secondary on a deep ball to stay with their receiver and get out there. I'm struggling with my defensive speed.
Yeah, didn't they say corners were just offensive players who couldn't catch the ball?
I have a grandson that I'm raising to be a cornerback, but my position is I want him initiating hits and not. I have a problem with this defenseless receiver penalty that I don't think they call it nearly enough. Apparently, you got to spear someone with your helmet for it to get called. But frankly, in my opinion, and we saw it yesterday, if a guy jumps up in the air to catch a ball, you should not be able to slam into him from behind before his feet hit the ground. I don't know how much more defenseless you're going to get. And I saw that happen yesterday with no flag, and I was appalled. That should be a penalty. You could seriously injure someone who is up in the air from behind. They don't see you coming. They don't know you're coming. It's dangerous.
Yeah. Jason Lloyd of the Athletic was saying that yesterday after the game. He was talking to some linemen, and they were really frustrated yesterday over some of the calls that they were making, when it came to holding and stuff like that. And I guess some of the linemen felt that the referees were like, we're going to be in control of this game, from the very beginning, and they weren't letting a lot of stuff go that normally is let go. So, a lot of frustration coming out of that game in Cincinnati. So, all right, ladies, we're going to go ahead and take a
I don't want to be a Homer girl and say the referees just hate us, but there were 2 holding calls where even the announcers on the replay say, I'm not seeing it. That's textbook how you hold somebody, like how you block somebody. The guy didn't, he didn't get around past him. He stayed square to him, as he held on to him around. So there were a couple that even the announcers were like, I don't know why they called that. And theoretically, you could call holding on every play, but there were a couple called against us that they were like, Cincinnati been doing that all day and they've been letting that go. How come Cleveland can't do it? So if the announcers notice it, it's not just us being everyone hates Cleveland.
Yeah, and George says, what about the bracketing of Chase when Higgins and Boyd went down? That is doubling. Where was the adjustment or during the game time also? Also, the defense peaked on the flea flicker and got burned. So, got to be ready for trick plays as well. You got to be ready for anything. And the Cleveland Browns just wasn't yesterday. So, like I said, I think a lot of the pressure was on Cincinnati, especially being tied with Baltimore as well. And trying to win that division for the playoffs. Who do you guys think will win that division? Do you think it'll be Baltimore? Or do you think it'll be Cincinnati?
Cincinnati.
Yeah, I think, especially with Lamar hurt right now, not sure if he's going to be able to play this week or if he'll come back next week. With him out, I think, Cincinnati can take the division. But if he is healthy, I think, it's going to be a close race between them two.
Okay.
Well, they play Pittsburgh again. I don't know if Cincinnati plays Pittsburgh again. Pickett went out yesterday and got put in concussion protocol. So I don't know how long he's going to be out for. That hit he took bounced his head a couple times off the floor. So if they had to put Mitch Trubisky back in. So Pittsburgh is a hot mess. And if we all get to play them, that could be an easy win for all three teams, as we're finishing out. I'm hoping Atlanta gives Baltimore a game, but they got to have 100% healthy Lamar if they're going to do anything.
All right, we're going to take another break right quick. You're listening to Her in the Huddle on WOVU 95.9 FM, and we'll be right back.
The holiday season is here, and it's time to reconnect with family and friends and all sorts of loved ones. But staying connected can be expensive. For many, it's easy to feel isolated, but you can stay connected to loved ones by calling 216-307-6990. Treat yourself this holiday season with a discounted internet bill or a new free device. A digital navigator is standing by to help you find affordable internet plans and devices, as well as free training and support. Reconnect today with the help of digital navigators. 216-307-6990. This message is brought to you by WOVU 95.9 FM. Our Voices United, a Burton Bell Clark community radio station. Happy holiday.
Take winter out for a spin on fresh ice. Now through February 26th, the place to be is the rink at University Circle, proudly sponsored by PNC. Every Saturday, partake in free ice skating lessons. That's right, free. And special programs with your family and friends. While you're there, use your rink wristband to enjoy discounts around University Circle. And listen up. I know you're going to be skating. I know it's going to be a little chilly. Warm up with a cup of hot chocolate from the concession stand. So whatever you do, you're floating, you glide, you slide, you spinning. This winter season at the rink at Wade Oval in University Circle. For more information, visit universitycircle.org/rink. That's universitycircle.org/rink. This message is brought to you by PNC, University Circle Incorporated, and WOVU 95.9 FM. Our Voices United, Burton Bell Clark Community Radio.
Welcome back to Her in the Huddle with Rachel Hill, the First Lady of Sports.
All right, welcome back to Her in the Huddle on WOVU at 95.9 FM. This is your girl, Rachel Hill, the First Lady of Sports. I'm here with Cleveland Cates and Miss Brandy Fairfax. And ladies, there's another team in town right now playing pretty well. They're on a one-game winning streak, looking for a two-game winning streak out in San Antonio. It is the Cleveland Cavaliers. And ladies, unfortunately, they dropped a what should have been a very close game to to Sacramento Kings. Unfortunately, I don't know if you guys got a chance to catch that game or not, but they pretty much lost to the Sacramento Kings in the same fashion that they lost to them a couple weeks ago. They were unfortunately unable to defend the 3-point line, and they got beat at home exactly the same way. They started off very sluggishly from the very beginning, and Sacramento got up big. But Mike Brown has Sacramento playing very well so far. And then they were able to win on Thursday night. Not Thursday night, excuse me. They were able to win against Oklahoma City Thunder on Saturday night. So I was not able to watch that game at all because I had a prior commitment. But also know Donovan Mitchell, he did not play on Friday night as well. He did not play last night. Not last night, but he did not play on Saturday. I believe he's scheduled to play tonight. What are you guys' thoughts about the Cavs right now so far?
So they did say that Donovan and Kevin Love both participated in shoot around this morning. So they should both be able to play tonight. But I think, so far this season, we have seen the Cavs play pretty well throughout most of the game. But, towards the end of the game, we are seeing late game execution that they're having trouble with. And, that's been most of their problem to finish out these games. Right now, they are ranking 24th in clutch net rating, and they're saying that the Cavs have played in 15 of these clutch games. But, I think losing against Sacramento in the same way was a very tough loss, having Donovan out as well when, this season he's been averaging over 30 points as well, trying to make up for that. But I know JV has also said, about the fourth quarter collapses that they've been having and their lack of execution there. And he thinks, he could find also more ways to help. But I think, once they figure that out, they'll be good.
Yeah, I agree. Although I did like seeing Deli play. I miss Deli.
They did
I miss my Deli Tray.
Well, they didn't really do no tribute to him, no video or anything like that. But, they did when he came in, give a special shout out, about playing on the 2016.
When you play so hard that you dehydrate yourself and have to go to the emergency room after a game, I got nothing but mad love and respect for him. They shouldn't have to get up to a 15, 20 point lead in the first quarter to be able to maintain that for the whole game. And these fourth quarter collapses are frustrating. Early in the season, I just attributed it to conditioning, and it's early and they'll figure it out, but it's still happening. And JB needs to get a handle on that, because there are a lot of teams out there that we have played and that we're going to continue to play that are capable of going on 5-10, 15-0 runs against us, of hitting threes and catching up. So no lead is safe, and you cannot let up the gas on your scoring or on your defense. And we have enough talent that if Darius is out or Donovan's out, we have enough other guys that we should be okay. We've got one of the deeper teams in the league. So when they say,
we really though?
Oh, yes. When Donovan's out, it's still okay. It's okay. Donovan was out. He will do better when he's back. No, we should be able to hold our own better than we did especially against Sacramento when he's out. So I know it's almost Christmas. I keep wanting to say it's early in the season, but you know what? It's not early in the season anymore. It's almost Christmas. You need to get a little bit more consistent, because this streaks that they're going on in a game, not like win 4, lose 4. I mean, like you go on a 15-0 run, then you go on a 0-15 and you give it all back. That is the stuff that they've got to try to mitigate. And when you mentioned Mike Brown, it popped something into my head. Did I see that Paul Silas passed away?
Yes, Paul Silas did pass away. I meant to write something about talking about that. May his memory be a blessing. But yeah, Paul Silas did pass away at the age of 79. 3-time NBA champion.
LeBron James, first head coach. Yes.
Until they ran him out. But yes.
Yeah, he was one of my favorite Browns coach or Cavaliers coaches, just because I thought he was always a class act. Always, on and off the court. The few times that I talked to him, and that was before you and I were doing stuff, but the few times that I had an opportunity to talk to him, he was always very polite, very professional. And I shouldn't have to say that about people, but Rachel and Brandy, there are enough people in this world who are not always polite to females that are asking them questions, and he just was always a class act. So I was sad when I saw that he had passed. And when you mentioned Mike Brown, I thought, he used to coach here. And then I'm like, I want to talk about Paul Silas because I thought that was since last Monday, like it was just this weekend. So thoughts and prayers.
Yeah. But one of the things is they're still trying to figure out what they want to do at the three, so at the three spot. So that's one thing that, they're kind of, and I have a feeling that they might try to do something at the trade deadline. So when I ask you, are they really, there just yet? They're not, because they have that deficit in the small forward position. So they have to kind of figure out what they want to do, because they have Karras starting, Lamar starting. Isaac really hasn't started in a minute, but when Dean Wade comes back, Dean Wade might, start. So they're trying to figure out what they're going to do at that three position. And I hope they figure it out soon, because, you don't want them. The East isn't as tight as the West is, where literally a game separates everybody. But, you want to go ahead and start asserting yourself now and being dominant now, where it's like, I think Boston might just run away with the Eastern Conference, but you definitely want to stay in the top third of the team. So I think that's important to kind of figure out that small forward position with this team.
Well, I think you need to figure it out, but I also think with the bigs we have, with the depth we have, that this is an opportunity for JB Bickerstaff to create a pattern for a team where the small forward isn't handled the way other teams do it, and it isn't the main position like point guard, or you can win games doing things differently from other teams. You don't have to use the same model that everyone else uses for how they use a small forward in a game. He can create something different, regardless of, even if it's a revolving door of someone different every 4 minutes. You can just keep revolving that guy around and focus your game in a different way. So I don't know that we need to trade for a small forward. I think he just needs to figure out what he wants that role to be and start coaching that way.
Yeah. Mickey says hi. I can't put what else Mickey said though, but Mickey says hi, and George says the Cavs are playing well, but so far, but they need to finish consistently, all while closing out games, and they need to be consistent in that area. So Brandy, did you have something to say? I'm sorry, I thought I saw your mouth about the
I was
move.
just gonna say the one good thing is that Ricky Rubio was given the green light to participate in 5-on-5s. They said they're not going to rush him, because you know how important he is to the team, and he's also torn, his ACL before. So, but that's good. So hopefully, maybe he'll be back next month. He'll be a great help once he comes back.
Well, and he changes the whole look of the team. He really does. Even coming off the bench, even if he's not starting and he's coming off the bench, he changes everything about the way they play. At least last year he did. Their chemistry and the way they played when he was on the court versus when he wasn't is completely different. And it'll give other teams, it'll almost be like a whole different Cavs team for other teams to deal with when he's back. So that is going to help in all phases.
Even from a leadership standpoint, I know last year he helped out Darius a lot.
Yep. Oh, so.
Yeah, Ricky Rubio was really important to this team, and they missed him a lot. And it's just crazy. You think about him being closer to the tail end of his career, but you can never tell. And, that might not be the case. If you have him on reduced minutes and stuff like that, he could be really impactful for your team because he has some impact. And last year, it's like the team almost kind of fell apart a little bit. They had a lot of injuries, but I don't want to say they completely fell apart, because of Ricky Rubio. But he was a key cog in that hole, and him going down, really kind of caused a crisis for the Cavs, as well as those other injuries, and they were top 3 in the Eastern Conference. And with those injuries, especially after All-Star, they just went down. So you definitely hoping that, this team can stay healthy and just continue to have these small, minor injuries and stuff like that, and they get back to play, as opposed to the big, change of injuries. So 1 minute left, less than that. CJ Stroud came in third place for the Heisman. I felt like he got robbed. One game should not lose you the Heisman, but it is what it is. So ladies, for Cleveland Kate, for Brandy Fairfax, for the First Lady of Sports, you've been listening to Her in the Huddle on WOVU 95.9 FM, and we are out of here. Thank you, ladies. I'll talk to y'all later.
Yep.
I thought about you on the airplane as I watched the movie called 8 Black Pearls, 9 Black Pearls.
What do you think about me?
Aren't you in Alpha
No, I'm in Delta Sigma Theta.
Oh, wow.
We have
It still made me think
22,
about you.
22 pearls.
FIA 22. I can't remember. I was half asleep, but I watched it.
Okay. You had to tell me about it.
I will tell you about it.
Okay. All right. I'll see
Bye.
y'all later.
Bye.
Bye.